Skyrim, it's good to be back, though in today's video, rather than diving down a rabbit hole, as I've become quite prone to doing, I wanted to revisit an older playlist of mine, one that I add to every so often, where we dive into 10 secrets in any given game, and I've actually done one on Skyrim before. So I thought it might be worthwhile to finally, after 2 years and counting, return to Skyrim for a part 2, to explore 10 more of this game's secrets. Whether they be cool discoveries in the world, Easter eggs, potential Easter eggs, and above all else is just anything that I don't necessarily think would make good solo videos. Of course, for any given secret there will be timestamps in the description so you can see what this video holds in store for you potentially, or if you are just simply looking for something in particular. And so I welcome you. Grab yourselves a brew, perhaps even a biscuit, sit down, prepare to chill out as we explore 10 secrets in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim many players missed. To begin with, we find ourselves out in the Rift, not far from the village of Iverstead, for it's here where we can find a Necromancer partaking in a rather peculiar and oddly specific resurrection. At this peculiar, unmarked location, we can find the Necromancer performing some kind of ritual in front of a shrine, atop which sits a chicken's nest, in which there are eggs. Should we relieve the Necromancer of life, there is a chance his summonings will not immediately die, as is typically the case. What are his summonings? Well, they're chickens. For some unfathomable reason, the man has been resurrecting chickens. Now, as uncouth as this might seem, I actually think the man might be onto something. You see, the people of Skyrim are notoriously protective of their chickens. Should you kill a chicken for any reason, you immediately become public enemy number 1. Therefore, we can deduce this novice conjurer, the chicken necromancer, known fondly as the poultry reanimator, as chickromancer sadly means something altogether different, was plotting world domination by resurrecting the only entities the people of Skyrim are too afraid to kill. But jokes aside, considering he's marked as a novice necromancer, he's clearly new to this whole resurrection business and was honing his skills on a fairly straightforward being. However, the prospect of him resurrecting chickens for directly nefarious purposes remains amusing. Moving on, our second secret takes us just south of the Shrine of Periite in the Reach, where one might happen upon a deceased saber cat in a narrow crevice, with evidence that this majestic beast was indeed slain by a person, although this has been obscured by my modded version of the game. This would suggest the cat on steroids killer drew the beast into the crevice and stabbed it, killing it in a controlled environment. This would appear to be an Easter egg referencing the 2006 Zack Snyder film 300, in which during the film's opening, the young Leonidas draws a wolf into a similar crevice as to avoid either being surrounded or flanked, and impales it with a spear. And while we're still local to the Shrine of Periite, a short distance to the southeast, we can find this curious totem, at the base of which the remains of a Bosmer woman and another humanoid carcass that appears to have been eviscerated by an animal of some variety. Accompanying them we can find a couple of random poisons, a random enchanted dagger, a diamond and 2 salt piles. It's unclear what this totem is for, or how these individuals died, but it's assumed that it's something to do with the Periite shrine at the top of the cliff. But the presence of 2 individuals, a dagger and poison, has led some to speculate that this may be a reference to Romeo and Juliet, but I'm not sure how we came to that conclusion based on information that we simply don't have. Rather, if you're seeking a Romeo and Juliet Easter egg, head to Whiterun, where you'll quickly observe a family feud between the Greymanes and Battleborns. However, if you're a handy pickpocket, you'll notice John Battleborn and Alfina Greymane, amidst their family's bitter rivalry, have been exchanging love letters, suggesting they share an impossible relationship due to their family's blood feud. And I do find it funny that every time that trope crops up in games like this, there's always a reference to Romeo and Juliet somewhere, and so, of course, it was going to crop up here. While we're in the Whiterun area, let's make a stop at Hunningbroom Meadery just outside the city walls. Well, during the Thieves Guild quest Dampened Spirits, we're sent to sabotage Hunningbrew as the establishment contends with a skeever infestation. With us posing as exterminators, we venture through a cavern connecting Honningbrew Meadery as a shop with the actual meadery, I suppose, and it's while down here that we encounter a crazed individual named Hamlin, a hostile Breton bandit wizard whose name isn't his only eyebrow-raising aspect, for it would appear Hammers over here is in charge of the Skeevers, and upon his death he yields a journal. It reads 10 years of ridicule, 10 years of imprisonment, 10 years of exile. The children threw rocks and the women spat upon me as the menfolk dragged me into Whiterun's prison. They branded me a danger to their pitiful existence, used words like madman and insane. Could a madman escape the prisons undetected? Could a lunatic establish a laboratory right under their noses? Could a psychopath create a mighty army from the common skeever? My days as an apprentice alchemist in Winterhold were no better. Those egotistical braggarts couldn't compete with my abilities. Where they fell short, I'd constantly excel. Did they appreciate my genius? Did they relish my contributions? No. My instructors beat me and said I was irresponsible, and the Archmage cast me into the streets like a common beggar. As my enemy grows complacent and weak, as they forget Hamlin and his utter brilliance, I build my army. I use every bit of knowledge at my disposal to forge their demise. Thanks to Sabjorn's unwitting assistance, my legion grows stronger every day. The irony that the same ingredients used to make his vile drink could be used to feed my offspring isn't lost upon me. Oh, they will pay. Their ignorance of impending annihilation amuses me. I will bury Whiterun and watch Winterhold burn, and when they experience the fury I've unleashed upon them, when my progeny are gnawing the flesh from their bones, they will come begging and grovelling at my feet, but there will be no mercy, no quarter, and no leniency. And I will laugh, and I will dance, and I will rejoice over their mangled, broken corpses. The time for recompense has arrived. 10 years of pain, 10 years of misery, 10 years of death. And thus the journal paints the rather colourful picture of an insane man. This, of course, is a reference to the Pied Piper of Hamlin, a popular legend that dates back to the Middle Ages, in which a mysterious piper dressed in pied clothing appeared in Hamlin in modern-day Germany, amidst a rat infestation. Playing his pipe, the piper lured the rats into a nearby river, drowning them, after which point the town's mayor refused to pay the piper for his services. And so, eventually, the piper returned, playing his pipe, this time luring the town's children. And as the legend goes, he was never seen again, nor were any of the children he took with him. You probably didn't need that much exposition for a fairly well-known legend, but hey, at least it explains Hamlin's existence as an Easter egg. Our next secret is fairly straightforward and concerns the follower Belrand, whom we can hire for 500 septims from the Winking Skeever in Solitude. I'm not entirely sure why you necessarily would. To me, followers in Skyrim are for the most part a bit of a waste of time, and they have an annoying habit of getting in the way of everything. But should we venture into a few caves with Belrand, he will eventually go saying the following.
When I was a boy, my friends and I used to play Seek the Wumpus in caves much like this.
A fairly cut-and-dry nod to the 1973 text-adventure game Hunt the Wumpus, set of course in a series of caves, within one of which is a Wumpus that the player has to kill. And so Belrand's line of dialogue is a rather jovial tribute to a relic of ye olde gaming. Next up, we need to head to Riften's Mistvale Keep, the seat of power of the Jarl, where it probably hasn't escaped your notice that the court wizard, Willandria, is as disorganized as she is forgetful. She rambles on and hardly makes any sense, to the extent that it would seem she's quite plausibly a bit mad.
Bring those items back to me and I'll be happy to experiment on you. No, that isn't right. I'd be happy to reward you.
While this is noteworthy within itself, it's the source of her madness that intrigues me more. You see, behind the counter in her quarters, we can find a curious letter addressed to Willandria from the College of Winterhold. A letter which reads as follows. Willandria, your letter sent to the College of Winterhold was rife with grammatical errors and incomplete thoughts, making them difficult to discern. Could you please clarify the points below for us to ensure we're on the same page? We have no record of a cloud emulsifier device or anything involving the magical manipulation of the clouds. Second, we can't send you a sample of the Heart of Lorcan for experimentation, as no such sample exists. And finally, in the 14th paragraph of your letter, you mention a substance called green moat. We're assuming this was a simple mistake and you meant to write green spore. If that's the case, we have contaminated skeever carcasses with the disease available if needed. We'd also like to thank you for sending us your notes regarding your experiments. We've all had quite a grand time reading them. Mirabelle Irvine. Now, while green moat is something the College of Winterhold is clearly not awfully familiar with, as it's clear they've dismissed Willandria as utterly loony, it is actually a thing in the Elder Scrolls, but it's found on the Shivering Isles, the realm of the Daedric Prince of Madness, Sheogorath. Specifically, green moat is a narcotic substance created by the mortal inhabitants of this plane. Considering the college isn't aware of this substance's existence in any capacity and assumes green moat is a spelling error for something else entirely, it means Willandria acquired the knowledge of this likely as first-hand as it gets, suggesting Willandria here has been to the Shivering Isles and may very well have brought back a tinge of madness. Beyond that though, the letter stands to reference previous Elder Scrolls titles. Green moat is a nod to the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion's DLC, The Shivering Isles, that takes us, as the title suggests, to the Shivering Isles. The Heart of Lorkhan makes a plot-significant appearance in the Elder Scrolls III Morrowind. This appears to be the only mention of a cloud emulsifier though. Will it crop up in the future? Who knows. Our 7th secret brings us to Blackreach, where you can see my lighting mods have backfired spectacularly, and somewhere down here towards the southeast of the area, we can find an interior known simply as War Quarters. Locate the giant orb thing from which, if you shout at it, a dragon will spawn, and head southeast, you'll be fine. Once within these ancient dwarven ruins, we can find a chamber within which there are 7 beds. More specifically, 7 beds for 7 dwarves, organised into an incomplete circle, making an allowance for the door, of course. If you follow the corridor to the other end, you will find a lonesome double bed. Naturally, this has been interpreted as an Easter egg to Snow White and the 7 dwarves. Well, it's either that or, as the name suggests, it's a war quarters, which I presume is a defancification for barracks, and so you'd naturally have some soldiers on standby here. But 7 dwarves? I can certainly see it. For our 8th thing of the day, we need to head to Bleak Coast Cave, situated mostly to the east of Winterhold. It's within this bloody icy cavern that we'll find what appears to be a family of trolls, and so naturally before we observe what we've come to see, we'll need to put these monstrosities to the sword. Once that's done, we'll be free to view what appears to be a skeleton dangling from the cavern's icy ceiling, and on the ground beneath it we'll find an enchanted sword. The mods do appear to have messed with this one as well, and what we're supposed to be able to see here is a full skeleton dangling and the sword embedded in some ice. This is clearly a reference to a scene on Hoth in the second ever Star Wars movie, The Empire Strikes Back, in which Luke Skywalker finds himself in a predicament not dissimilar to this one in an icy cave at the mercy of a beast known as a Wumpa, which doesn't look terribly dissimilar to Skyrim's frost trolls. So, all things considered, good reference. Speaking of trolls, our next secret takes us to a bridge to the south of Markarth. Upon our approach, we'll notice a goat on the bridge, and should we get closer, it will be joined by 2 others crossing the bridge, though in my case one cropped up from beneath it, which was really strange. Under the bridge, however, we will happen upon the deceased corpse of a troll. It's been a hard life, hasn't it, Steve? This appears to be a nod to a fairy tale of Norwegian origin named 3 Billy Goats Gruff, and the plot revolves around 3 Billy Goats attempting to cross a river. But beneath the bridge lives a fearsome troll. There's a bit of back and forth, but long story short, the goats kill the troll, and perhaps that's what Matey Lad was doing under there after all. And from now on it would seem the bridge is safe. So big up the goats for headbutting this ghastly troll to death. Oh, and there's Belrand. I forgot to fire him. For our 10th and final thing, we need to head nowhere in particular. Rather, we need to look at a particular book. There are many books in Skyrim, so I wouldn't be surprised if you haven't read them all. But one is titled Kolb and the Dragon. You can find copies all over Skyrim, with known locations being the Bard's College and Blue Palace in Solitude, Bolly's House in Riften, and the Braidwood Inn in Kynesgrove. And what makes this book stand out in any capacity is it appears to follow a choose-your-own-adventure format. So, if you get tired of vicariously adventuring through the Dragonborn, you can vicariously adventure through the Dragonborn as the Dragonborn vicariously adventures through written words in a book, reading paragraphs then turning to the page it tells you to based on the decision you make out of the options you're given. It can be a bit of a nightmare to flip through, and the page turning animation will feel like it takes an eternity before you're done. So fortunately, this is a shortened version of a choose-your-own-adventure book, and most options swiftly result in Kolb dying horribly. Now, choose-your-own-adventure stories are quite complex to write, so the fact that somebody went through that effort for a throwaway piece of game content is rather noteworthy. And with that, we come to the end of today's video. I'd like to thank you all for watching. I hope you've all enjoyed it. If you did and would like to see more of this, be sure to let me know suggestions for games and perhaps secrets in games that have already been covered, such as the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, that would suit more this format than their own videos. As fun as those are, there needs to be substance that just don't work. So the best way to ensure you see more content in this vein is to get stuck in and throw your ideas at me. Beyond that, be sure to go ahead, leave a like, subscribe if you happen to be new here, of course only if you want to, and any shares with your friends would be massively appreciated. And if you're not too keen on throwing your ideas in the ravenous comments section, you can always drop me a follow on social media and send me a private DM, whether that be on Instagram or Twitter. Or X as it's known these days, I suppose. But above all else, with any luck, I hope to be seeing you all very soon with another video at some point. But until next time, take care, and goodbye.